Industrial Revolution, 1750 to 1850 shifted economies to manufacturing and industry. Introduction, a transformative era. Between 1750 and 1850, the Industrial Revolution fundamentally transformed economies around the world, shifting them from primarily agricultural systems to manufacturing and industry. Originating in Great Britain, the revolution spread to Europe, the United States, and eventually the rest of the world, marking a pivotal moment in human history. This period saw the rise of new technologies, innovative processes, and the establishment of factories, all of which created profound changes in how people lived, worked, and interacted with the economy. The Industrial Revolution was not just an economic transformation, it was a social and cultural upheaval. The revolution led to the urbanization of societies, the expansion of global trade, the emergence of new social classes, and the development of new political ideologies. The shift to an industrial economy marked the dawn of the modern era, with long-lasting impacts that continue to shape our world today. 1. The key innovations of the Industrial Revolution. The steam engine. One of the most crucial technological innovations of the Industrial Revolution was the steam engine, which played a central role in powering industries, transportation, and machinery. The development of the steam engine began with Thomas Newcomen in the early 18th century and was significantly improved by James Watt in the 1770s. Watt's design made the steam engine more efficient and versatile, leading to its widespread use in various industries. The steam engine powered factories, mines, and mills, significantly increasing productivity. It also revolutionized transportation, making the steamship and railroads viable, which enabled the faster movement of goods and people, opening up new markets for trade. Mechanized textile production. In the textile industry, the shift from hand production to mechanized processes was a driving force of the Industrial Revolution. The invention of machines such as the spinning jenny, 1764, by James Hargreaves, the water frame, 1769, by Richard Arkwright, and the power loom, 1785, by Edmund Cartwright revolutionized the production of cloth. These innovations allowed for the mass production of textiles, which had previously been made by hand in homes or small workshops. Factories, powered by steam engines, were able to produce textiles on a much larger scale, reducing costs and increasing availability, leading to an expansion of trade and consumption. Iron and steel production. The iron and steel industries underwent major transformations during the Industrial Revolution. The development of the Bessemer process, 1856, by Henry Bessemer in England made it possible to produce cheap, high-quality steel on a large scale. Steel became essential for the construction of railways, buildings, and machinery, and it drove further industrial growth. The increased demand for iron and steel also spurred the development of new mining techniques, such as open-pit mining and blast furnaces, which made it possible to extract more resources more efficiently. 2. The growth of factories and urbanization. The rise of factories. The Industrial Revolution saw the rise of factories, which became the heart of industrial production. Unlike the traditional system of production, where artisans worked in small workshops or homes, factories concentrated workers and machines under one roof, enabling large-scale production of goods. This was particularly evident in the textile industry, where factories replaced the traditional cottage industry system. The rise of factories led to the centralization of production and the creation of new job opportunities, especially for women and children, who were employed in large numbers due to their ability to perform repetitive tasks. However, factory work was grueling, and the working conditions were often harsh, with long hours, low wages, and dangerous environments. Urbanization and the growth of cities. As factories grew, so did the demand for workers, leading to the rapid growth of cities. People from rural areas moved to urban centers in search of jobs, contributing to the phenomenon of urbanization. Cities such as Manchester, Birmingham, and Liverpool in England saw their populations swell as people sought employment in factories. However, this rapid urbanization also led to overcrowding, poor living conditions, and a lack of adequate infrastructure. Slums sprang up around factories, where workers lived in cramped, unsanitary conditions. The urban poor faced significant challenges, including disease, poverty, and a lack of access to basic services. 3. Social and economic changes. The rise of new social classes. The Industrial Revolution also brought about significant changes in social structures. The traditional agrarian society, dominated by landowners and peasants, was replaced by a society where the middle class and working class played more prominent roles. The middle class, as industrialists, entrepreneurs, and merchants profited from the rise of factories, a new middle class emerged. This class, made up of business owners, bankers, and professionals, became the driving force behind the economic expansion of the industrial era. The middle class valued entrepreneurship, education, and individual achievement. The working class. The industrial economy created a large working class, consisting of factory workers, miners, and laborers who worked in harsh conditions. Although they were crucial to the success of the industrial economy, they were often exploited by factory owners. Many workers lived in poverty, with little job security or rights. Labor unions and workers' rights. The harsh working conditions in factories led to the formation of labor unions in the early 19th century, as workers sought to improve their wages and working conditions. These unions advocated for better pay, shorter working hours, and safer working environments. The rise of the labor movement eventually led to significant changes in workers' rights, including the introduction of laws to limit child labor, regulate working hours, and improve factory conditions. However, these changes were slow and often met with resistance from factory owners and the government. The spread of industrialization. The Industrial Revolution did not remain confined to Britain. By the 19th century, other countries such as Germany, France, and the United States began to industrialize, though at different rates. The US saw rapid industrial growth, particularly in the Northeast and around cities like New York and Chicago, where industries like textiles, steel, and transportation thrived. By the mid-19th century, industrialization spread to other parts of the world, including Japan and Russia, each developing its own industrial economy, albeit under different political and social systems. 4. Environmental and global impact. Environmental changes. The Industrial Revolution also had a profound impact on the environment. The increased use of coal and other fossil fuels to power machines led to air pollution, and the expansion of factories and mines contributed to the destruction of natural landscapes. The growth of cities also led to deforestation and the depletion of natural resources. The widespread use of steam engines, factories, and mass production processes further accelerated environmental degradation, with long-lasting consequences that continue to be felt today. Global trade and imperialism. The Industrial Revolution helped fuel global trade and imperialism. As European nations industrialized, they sought new markets for their manufactured goods and sources of raw materials, leading to the expansion of colonial empires. The demand for raw materials like cotton, rubber, and oil drove European powers to colonize parts of Africa, Asia, and the Americas. Industrialized nations also developed advanced transportation systems, including railroads and steamships, which facilitated global trade and the movement of goods. The global spread of industrial goods and materials accelerated the process of economic globalization, a trend that continues to this day. The legacy of the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution from 1750 to 1850 was a pivotal period that reshaped economies, societies, and cultures. It marked the shift from an agrarian, rural economy to one dominated by manufacturing, industry, and technology. The revolution laid the foundation for the modern world, driving economic growth, social change, and global trade. It also introduced challenges such as poor working conditions, urban poverty, and environmental degradation that continue to influence policy and society today. Ultimately, the Industrial Revolution ushered in a new era of human progress and technological advancement, but it also highlighted the complexities and consequences of rapid economic growth. Its legacy continues to shape the global economy, industrial practices, and the way societies balance progress with sustainability. American Revolution economic impact. 1775 to 1783 affected global trade and commerce. Introduction. A revolution with global economic consequences. The American Revolution, 1775 to 1783, was a pivotal event not only in the history of the United States, but also in the broader global economy. While the revolution's political outcomes are well known, its economic impacts were equally profound, reshaping global trade, commerce, and the balance of power in the Western world. The fight for independence from Great Britain had far-reaching effects, extending well beyond the immediate territories of the conflict. At the heart of the revolution were competing visions for economic freedom and governance. The outcome of the revolution would not only alter the economic landscape of North America, but also set the stage for the rise of capitalist economies and new global trade patterns that would echo through the 19th century. 1. Disruption of colonial trade patterns. Break with the British Empire. Before the Revolution, the American colonies were tightly integrated into the British mercantile system. The colonies supplied raw materials such as tobacco, cotton, furs, and timber to Britain, and in return, they imported manufactured goods from the mother country. This system was designed to benefit Britain's economy and keep the colonies economically dependent. The American Revolution severed these economic ties, disrupting the trade routes that had long been established between the colonies and Britain. The colonies could no longer rely on British goods, nor could they depend on the British Navy to protect their trade routes. The loss of British markets and the blockade imposed by Britain on American ports placed significant strain on colonial commerce. Emergence of new trade partners. With the disruption of British trade, American merchants sought new markets for their goods. The Revolution opened new trading relationships with other nations, especially France, which became a crucial trading partner during the war. France provided vital military support to the American cause and was a key destination for American goods such as tobacco, rice, and indigo. The newly formed United States began to explore trade routes to other European countries, including Spain, the Netherlands, and even countries in Latin America, creating a diversified global trade network. Though this trading environment was still unstable due to the ongoing conflict, it laid the foundation for a more independent and varied economy. 2. Impact on the British economy. Loss of colonies and revenue. The British Empire faced substantial economic consequences as a result of the Revolution. The 13 colonies represented a significant source of revenue for Britain. Not only did the colonies supply raw materials, but they also provided Britain with a lucrative market for its manufactured goods. With the loss of the American colonies, Britain lost access to these resources and markets, which resulted in a sharp decline in its economic growth in the immediate aftermath of the Revolution. Furthermore, the costs of the war, which were borne primarily by the British government, left Britain with substantial debt and forced it to seek new sources of revenue, including through increased taxation on other colonies and trade. While Britain eventually rebounded economically due to its global empire, the loss of the American colonies forced the empire to re-evaluate its economic strategies, leading to a shift in focus toward India and other parts of the empire for resources and trade. Shift in global trade dynamics. The American Revolution also contributed to the reorganization of the global balance of power. As Britain lost control over its former colonies, other European powers, particularly France, Spain, and the Netherlands, sought to expand their influence in the Americas and the Caribbean. France, in particular, began to exert greater control over trade routes in the West Indies and North America, while the Netherlands took advantage of the political instability in Europe to become a more significant player in global commerce. As a result, the Revolution marked a decline in Britain's economic dominance and contributed to the rise of new commercial powers, especially in the Atlantic world. 3. The rise of American trade and commerce. Post-revolutionary economic challenges. After gaining independence, the United States faced immediate economic difficulties. The disruption of trade during the Revolution had caused widespread inflation, and many Americans were burdened with debt from the war effort. The young country struggled with establishing a stable currency and developing robust trade policies to protect its fledgling economy. However, the post-revolutionary period also saw opportunities for growth. Without the restrictions of British mercantilism, American merchants were free to establish independent trade routes, increase production, and develop a more diverse economy. This period of economic adjustment in the US laid the groundwork for the rise of American industry and commerce in the 19th century. Expansion of domestic production. With the end of British restrictions on manufacturing, the United States began to grow its own domestic industries. Although manufacturing was still in its infancy, especially in comparison to Britain, the Revolution sparked the development of industries like textiles, iron, and shipbuilding. The establishment of new factories and industries, particularly in the Northeast and along the coast, encouraged domestic capital investment. This early industrialization contributed to the growth of the American middle class and the eventual establishment of the United States as an industrial power in the 19th century. 4. The shift toward capitalism and free trade. Emergence of capitalist ideals. The revolution played a role in the rise of capitalism and free market principles in the United States. Prior to the war, much of the American economy had been shaped by the constraints of the British mercantile system, which emphasized control, protectionism, and state-regulated commerce. Following independence, the United States adopted more liberal economic policies centered around the idea of free trade and minimal government interference in business. This shift toward free market capitalism became particularly evident in the policies of Alexander Hamilton, the first Secretary of the Treasury under President George Washington. Hamilton's economic programs aimed at strengthening the national economy through public debt management, the creation of a national bank, and fostering trade relations with foreign nations, helping set the stage for a more modern and market-driven economy. Influence on global free trade. The American Revolution also had implications for the development of global free trade. As the United States embraced capitalist principles and sought to establish its own economic independence, it became a proponent of free trade in contrast to the protectionist policies of other nations, including Britain. This laid the groundwork for future international trade agreements and influenced the global shift toward more open markets in the following centuries. 5. Long-term economic consequences. The development of the US economy. In the long term, the American Revolution set the stage for the rapid development of the US economy in the 19th century. The expansion of westward territories and the growth of new industries, such as railroads, agriculture, and manufacturing, helped the US become one of the world's leading economic powers by the late 19th century. The newfound economic independence allowed the United States to make its own trade policies, establish new diplomatic relationships, and engage in global commerce without the constraints of colonial control. Global economic impact. The economic disruptions caused by the revolution rippled through the global economy, contributing to the growth of new trade networks, the decline of colonial empires, and the rise of new economic powers. The emergence of the United States as a major economic player in the Western Hemisphere shifted the economic focus of the Americas away from Europe and created new opportunities for trade in the region. A turning point in global economic history. The American Revolution had a profound economic impact on both the United States and the world at large. By disrupting long-standing trade patterns, altering global power dynamics, and fostering the rise of new economic systems like capitalism and free trade, the revolution helped shape the modern global economy. While the immediate effects were challenging, the ultimate outcome was the establishment of the United States as a major commercial power and the beginnings of a new, more interconnected world economy that would continue to evolve throughout the 19th and 20th centuries. The revolution was not just a fight for political independence. It was a catalyst for economic change with lasting global consequences.